Hello. So I'm just going to go about my usual workout. If there's anything where I can kind of say if there's anything that I think would be bad for backs or knees or anything of that sort, I'll just go through it as I would, and then if there's anything, I'll kind of say. Sorry, you have to forgive my living room. This is where I would usually do it, and this is where I can set up the camera to be able to film you. As somebody was too busy today to do any filming for me. So, you know, as an e-rider, that would relate to most people. Right, so I normally start with just at the edge of the mat, just sort of gentle stretch down, sort of through the back, the hips. I've already ridden 3 horses today and had a dressage practice, so this is, things are feeling a little sore, so to speak. And then from there, if I can get there, sort of let my hands, I come in about a foot in front of my maybe 2 feet eventually, and stretch out the hamstrings. I really try here to line up my feet with the mat. What I find is my right foot will always sneak in underneath me a little bit more than my left, just because I'm so much better at standing on my right foot. And then equally, I'm so much better at gripping with my right leg and not putting the right amount of weight down through my left stirrup because I use my right, I weight all on the right. Okay, and then from there, I sort of try to get down to a downward dog. If you've got a shoulder problem, you probably wouldn't want to go into this sort of position because it'd be super painful. But what you might be able to tolerate is something down here, sort of more into like a child's pose, and you'll get a nice stretch over the back, but the hamstrings, you know, won't benefit from it in the same way. Even when I come down here, I have to be really mindful that I keep myself in the center of the mat, and what happens is my toes on my right side again, my right foot, if I'm really aware, will sneak in. So just be aware of what your feet are trying to do behind you, and how much pressure you're putting down through each side. From there, I'll usually push myself up and back into a downward dog. Again, if your shoulders are killing you, you might be able to get here, but you should be all right just leaning down and stretching the hamstrings. The hamstrings always get really tight for riders because we don't really straighten out our legs when we're riding. If you can maintain a plank, I'll always come here next and then take a really big stretch, sort of low lunge position, stretch out the adductors and everything. I've probably been gripping the saddle with for dear life as much as I'm not supposed to. The bigger the trot gets, the more I start to hold on for my life. And then just lean out into that left leg. And as you lean out, you're going to feel quite an intense stretch, sort of all through the inner thigh, inner legs, and then just come back from that. If you have slightly bowed knees, you're probably not going to want to press out for too long, because these muscles will already be a bit stretched on you. So it's more for the sort of the inner area. And to improve your balance. And again, I'm watching putting my feet in exactly the same spot each time, so that one leg doesn't lean, and also watching that my body doesn't rock from one side to the other, because my body will sneak anywhere to try and be uneven, hence why I've had so many frustrations. And then I'll just come back and take another sort of child's pose again, lie there. It's nice also just to bring your arms down by your sides and then just stretch. Get your head nice and straight on the ground. Weight sort of on the forehead. And I just stretch out through the neck. Allow the shoulders just to relax because they've been very tightly sitting me up for the last 3.5 hours. And I just breathe into that a little bit, try and open the rib cage. And then from there, push up again. Take that high lunge position, and then from there I'll lift up and just hold. If you're doing this, be really sure that your knee is pointing over your second toe. So the second toe is about the right alignment for the knee. So it shouldn't be rocking outwards, it shouldn't be rolling in. Hold that. Sit back just ever so slightly and then lock in with the abs. Knee at 90 degrees to the floor. And then from there, lift up with the arms, again if you can. Or just go as far as you can if you've got a shoulder problem. I'll take my arms right up to where I usually do, which is just to sort of stretch out the psoas muscle here in the hip flexor, because that gets insanely tight when I'm riding, and it does off balance me one side to the other. And then from there, I bring the arms down, and then I take my foot back and then in line with the mat and try and line my feet up in the middle. I've got this lovely line in the middle of mine which keeps me exactly straight, and I line my hips up and lean out onto this knee ever so slightly, just a little bit off of that 90-degree angle now, and then I lean it back straight, and then just off that 90-degree angle and take it back straight, and then I take it off again and back straight, and then take a twist. This one I'm always really surprised how much the right side is it's always so tight on the right, and it's unsurprising that my horses are so tight on the right, and then they drift right because I'm always leaning off to the right, or just giving them the option really. And then come out of that and then lean, and then change legs and do the same thing on the other side. So say I step back, lean into that, hold that high lunge position, lock in the abs. What I do here more that I wouldn't do as often if it wasn't specifically for horse riding is I really make an effort to rotate my hips ever so slightly backwards, so that I get that sort of linear pelvis that you would want when you're sat on a horse, so that I can maintain that sort of upwards position from my lower abs. And then we hold that, and then same again, just keep holding and lift up. If it's too painful to lift up, just keep your arms close to you here and lift, and just lean back slightly. That'll give you enough stretch, but just watch you don't lean back too much and hurt you the rest of the other places in the spine. Okay, my balance is terrible. I wasn't lying when I said I was wonky. And then up, and then take the heel back. And then I have to line myself up again because I'm never ever straight. And then take the arms out. And then I always give it a few just to get my knee going, which just clicked. Sounds wonderful. Knee over second toe, sort of keep that going. This side's always way worse because my knee doesn't roll out, it rolls in on this one. So all these lovely old injuries that like to catch up with you, and then take it out. And then if you look up towards your fingertips, that always helps. And then I take the arm over. But what I really, really have to watch here, I don't know about you, but if I'm not aware of it, my body will collapse inwards, which is something that also happens when I'm riding. I collapse through my left side, which is immensely annoying when I'm trying to turn my horses left, especially when it's only a 10-meter circle. I fall in, they fall in. It's not fun. So I'm especially aware to sort of really push myself to stay in the right plane. So if I'm going this way, I will make every effort to make sure that my arms almost stay in this kind of corridor and I don't fall out. And then back, and then from there just come up. And then what we do is I have to line my feet up again very specifically because they won't line up straight if I'm not aware. So, and then I sit back into a incline squat. So even now they're still not level, honestly. And I do find myself fiddling around here for a while to get my feet straight, because what we want here is I want to keep the glutes strong so that I can maintain my position in the saddle without too much effort. Because when one side's weak, I really did find myself collapsing in the saddle and it's so uncomfortable. And then I come forwards here, stretch out through the sacroiliac joint, which is lovely. But again, make sure you're doing it exactly the same on each side, and you might find that one side's slightly tighter than the other. If that's the case, you can reach across away from the tight side. So if it's the right, reach across to the left. Then if it's the left, reach across to the right. It might surprise you. I've just done it on both sides, and actually I thought I'd be tight on the right, but it was actually the left. So why not? Just do it both sides. And then come up. And then from there, what I tend to do, because I also show jump a bit, so I sneak in my show jumping position because I wasn't reaching forwards enough. So I hold myself as if I was holding the reins, and then I take myself into that position, allow the horse as if I was riding, and then I take myself into a sort of a squat position as if I was doing a deadlift, and I tense the glutes, tense the lower abs, pull myself up as if I was bracing sort of for the jump and holding the horse in the reins, because I never sit up enough. So I hold the horse here and imagine myself holding my horse into the reins, and then I let forwards for the jump in my head. But what I have to watch here, and what you might find, is instantly I can feel more weight in my right glute than my left. So I have to adjust the fact, I almost have to push a little bit harder into the left, and then as I come up, push a bit harder into the left again. Like, even if you're not show jumping, this is still a pretty good one to do, because it makes you so aware of how much, if you had stirrups right now, you'd be pressing more on the right, and how much more you'd be saying to the horse, hey, we're drifting, we're heading off right here, and sending off the wrong signals. And then what would happen then is my leg would fling up behind me, because I'd be gripping with my right side so much that my stirrups would fling up behind me, and I'd have no balance when I landed. Brilliant fun. And then come up, and then I always tend to do at least 5, sometimes 10 of these, depending on how wonky I'm feeling at the time. But I think, given the fact that I've done quite a bit of riding today, I'm going to go a bit easier. Come forwards. Again, if it's hurting your shoulder, just take like a prayer position, or just brace your arms like this, so you don't have to be in full show jumper position. And then just come up, and just make sure you're doing exactly the same effort. I don't know how that leg snuck out again. Through each side. And then just let it down. And then from there, what I do is I would imagine now I've got one stirrup, and I'm going to take a one-legged hold. So now I'm really concentrating on the fact that I don't put enough weight in my left stirrup. So I would squat down, sort of a halfway squat, as if I was, and then from there I would try to straighten myself as if I was riding. So that's me riding with one stirrup. Holding and you'll see me, it's shaking, because this side is still, even after all my effort for the last 6 months and awareness, it's not, I can balance, but it's still not as happy as the right side, hence the problems. So hold, and then I tend to just try and sink into that just a little bit more, and then once I've sunk in a bit more, try to straighten up the body. And I do it from the core, just by turning, almost pulling that hip backwards, the ilium backwards there, and then I try to stretch up again as if I was holding a lovely dressage position, and tuck my tail in and tuck my butt underneath me as if I was riding, and then keeping that strong in the hip. And then from there, I'll imagine that, because obviously we don't get to stay completely still in the saddle, so I will imagine that I've taken maybe my outside leg back behind the girth, and not that you'd ever do this, but I'll swing my other leg forward, just to bring my hip in line, and then I might swing my outside leg back behind the girth. I mean, I don't think it goes that far back, but it's just for mobility, and enough to throw me slightly off, that I have to keep maintaining my balance no matter where my other or outside leg is going to go. And then I come back to centre again, come back to my dressage position, and then what I'm going to do, not that you would open out your reins this far, but again, I don't know about you, but I find myself with my reins that I will, if you watch me ride, I have a massive gap. I say massive, it looks massive, but you can see daylight between my right arm and my armpit, and it sort of hangs out to the right because I'm quite strong with my right hand. My left side is always clamped to my body, and I sort of lean down into it. So I'm making a conscious effort here to strengthen up and hold in my obliques, and then I'll open up my left side. Not that I'm going to open my rein like that, I promise, but I'll open my left side, and then I'll come back, and then I might take a pull on my imaginary left rein. What I've also been known to do is I've used bands, resistance bands to do this, and that's really helped. So I've actually I've tied them around something, and when I've pulled, I've had some resistance to sort of pull with the abs into. And then this poor leg's getting so tired now that I'm going to swap. So same thing on the other side. So I'll take that kind of squat position first, lean back into it, not very easy to do, and then just wake my leg up by doing a couple of squats and then try to get this position. Weirdly, as much as I would say that this is the leg that I lean down into, it feels, I think where it's so overworked, I don't have a lot of power in this leg, despite the fact that I might look slightly more balanced on it. Like I sort of touched on it in my post, that it's it's very, it works, but it's so overworked that it's tired all the time, and I don't actually get quite as much from this leg as I would like. So I always have to give it, I'll show you some stretches shortly, but this is sort of the exercises part that I would be doing. It's sort of to lean into this hip and then back. Again, watch your knee and that it stays in its plane over your second toe. Don't let your hips swing out. Mine will want to swing, so you've got to be really careful. Imagine that something's holding you almost in line as you come up and down. And then keep the hips, again, tip yourself back into your lovely dressage rider position and hold. And then start to fling the leg around a bit, set yourself off balance, behind the girth, kick behind the girth. I mean, my flying changes must be weird. This is what I actually was doing. But yeah, I promise I don't ride like this. And then I might take myself down, sink a little bit more into my imaginary stirrup, sit up a bit more with my pelvis, and then ride the horse nicely. Straighten out the leg, and then kick behind the girth, straighten out the leg. I promise I don't do this really in reality. Straighten behind the leg, but you'll find that your hip is probably on fire trying to hold you. And then do the other with the arms, open out to your right side. And when you open out, you can allow a bit of a twist through your upper body. So, but keep the other arm straight. So this one I used to do a lot with the polo players, because you can imagine you only play with your right hand. So they would hold the reins in the left, and it would always be the right side that was doing all the swinging while the left stays hopefully straight, controlling the horse. And then you're going to take a bit of a pull on your outside rein, and then I have to make sure that my elbow comes directly back, almost next to my rib cage, because for some reason it likes to come out to the side. And then it makes you so aware of all these little things that you do that kind of throw you off, but then potentially are messing up your horse. But you know, obviously your trainer can kind of see these things happening in real time with your horse. Okay, and then from there I might take it back if I've still got some balance left in this leg, and then hold. This is really good for the core, so I suck in, pull my stomach right in, and again it's good for the glutes as well. And then come up, try to balance. And I might just do one of those on the other side just for completeness sake. Slight bend in the knee, don't lock the knees, whatever you do. We don't need hyperextended knees. See, this side we wibble everywhere, and then hold. And again, I'm trying to collapse over my left, so just be very aware that your hips stay straight. Don't let your body collapse one side to the other or twist in or out. It has to stay straight. And then come back up. And after that, your legs are probably going to feel like they're going to fall off. So come back down to the mat. And then if you lie flat on your back, have I got enough room? Yes, I am still there. Okay, and then you've probably done if you've ever had a physio, done anything physio related, this is the physio's favourite, the good old glute bridge. But what I find for riders is really good is, can you take one leg off, maintain the straightness in the hips, but without any twisting. So this will be a very good telltale as to how much power you have in the glute to hold you, how much strength you have in the lower core to hold, and also then can you maintain this straightness in the pelvis if you take one leg off the ground. And then now we're going to really see, because if I go the other way, that's so good on the other side. And you can see my hip wants to wonk, so I'm really having to stretch, push up and make sure my hip stays straight, power up this glute a bit more because it's being lazy, and then say, hey body, I want to go straight, and try and rotate this hip back. Kick a bit more back in, and I'm just about there. So it's sort of a bit of a trial and error with that one. You've got sort of four areas where you can try and gain more power from if you're wonking. So if you feel your hips twisting, firstly lift up a bit more with the glute on the opposite side. So I drop, so I have to push up harder with this glute. Then I have to tense my back a bit more on this left side because it's being pathetic and doesn't want to hold. And then I have to use my left ab, which is a bit lazy, to try and lift me there as well, because it doesn't want to lift my leg. And then I let it down. And then once I've been through all that rigmarole of trying to get myself straight and switching on some muscles that don't really want to play, I'll come up again. So it's straight and quite easy to maintain when I'm in this position, sort of that shoulder, hip, knee, position that we all like to be in. Hold again, push the hips up, keep straight, try again. That leg, absolutely fine. And then this side, meh. It's a bit better. You might find it's usually the second time you try it, it's a bit better. And then just relax. Oh, and then I come back into this happy baby pose. And this one's always quite satisfying when you've been riding, but also insanely painful on your thighs. You almost want, it's satisfying, but you almost want to cry. So come back and just hold. I sometimes just give it a bit of a rock as well, because it's quite nice on the lower back, just to kind of just open everything up where I've been compressing it accidentally into the saddle. And then I open up the thighs again, and then just pull back, sort of outwards and towards you. And the more outwards you go, and the more back towards you, the more stretch you'll feel. You don't need to have your leg up here. If you only need to bring them sort of just gently back towards you. They don't need to be up next to your rib cage. That's taking it a bit far. Okay, and then from there, the other thing which massively makes a difference is core strength, obviously. So the hardest one, and probably the one I find the most effective, is to then come into this boat position. So I start here. Usually if I'm feeling a bit tired, I'll start here with my elbows just to sort of get the abs to switch on. So this is switched on, upper abs, lower abs as well, to lift my legs. And then once I'm feeling a bit more groovy, again, even here, I have to be careful that my pelvis doesn't try to move one side to the other. So I have to keep my pelvis completely straight, and sort of I almost have to shift, sort of and wobble my hips around a little bit to get them to feel like I've got the same amount of pressure through both sides. And then watch my abs. I will always find that my right side tries to do more than the left, standard. So I really do have to try and keep the left side engaged as much as possible. And then from there, if you can, take up that boat position. Try and keep your back straight. You don't have to have your arms. You can keep them there if they like that position, but if they don't, then they can stay sort of in a happier place. And then here, just hold that. And then I straighten out one leg and back, one leg and back. But if that's too much at the moment, you can do it from down here, one leg straight, one leg bent. It might hurt your back if you have any back problems to be straightening out one leg from that boat position. So down here is a lot safer. But if you're going to be down here, make sure that you're doing just as much with your lower abs as you are with your back. So don't let your back overpower your abs is essentially the message. And then out. And I always find that one side works harder than the other. If that is causing you any back problems or any back pain, the same thing again is that you can go from here and just straighten out the leg, bring it back, straighten out the leg and bring it back. That's a bit easier and a bit kinder to your back and the rest of your body, and it's not too offensive. And then from here, I would bring myself just half sit and hold, and then just hold onto the neck, just to support the weight of your head. But even here, I find that one side of my abs works harder than the other. It's immensely frustrating. So I almost have to sort of twist around a little bit until I just sort of gently moving my upper body from side to side, or just slightly rotating myself around until I reach a point that I feel that my abs look straight, which actually feels very weird, but I promise I actually look straight, I just don't feel it. And then just hold that position, even though it's going to feel a bit strange. Okay, and then from there, bring the knees up and come over. Just hold that, because it's a lovely stretch for the back, and it's really nice. And then from there, I hold the toe, which is quite a nice stretch then, if you want to start bringing the IT bands into it. But you're getting sort of the sacroiliac joint and a bit the hamstring and a bit of the IT band in this position, which is quite useful. And then same thing, other side, take it back over, and then hold. And then I'm going to collide, I think, in a minute with my fireplace, but it's all right. And then just hold that. You'll find that one side always is tighter than the other. And then just keep holding as much as you can, because it can be quite intense. Okay, and then come up, and then just take a stretch of the IT band there. It's nice, but it's, yeah, it can be a bit painful. And just hold. And then if you're really, really clever, you can straighten there as well, if it'll allow you to. I'm not that flexible, but this is about as much as I can do and bear with my leg. It might seem like I'm flexible, but I'm really not. And then just hold this. So leg straight. Again, watch what your hips are up to. Try to make sure they maintain their straightness, because they will not want to. And then again, if you're feeling really cool, you can straighten up through there, and then hold, and then come back. Then I come back to this position, and then I take a twist around from here. And again, I find that this becomes so apparent when I'm riding, that it's so easy for my horses to go to the left, and they fall in on the left, because this side for me, as you see, I can rotate so easily to the left, not so much to the right. And then over, and I have to pull myself around to the right. So it becomes very apparent. Make sure that your hips are still pointing in the right direction as you twist. Sometimes you might find that your hip wants to fall backwards or start to twist the counter twist. Don't let it, stay where you are. And then take your legs out straight and just try and find your seat bones. And then just sit for a second. Try and find and hold yourself up straight. And that's where I try to go first. And then what I do is, if you can bear it, I mean, I always have rings on. And I end up sitting on my hands. I find it really interesting to sit on my hands. So if you sit on your hands, and then lean a bit of weight into your left seat bone, and then a bit into the right. And you can start to feel the difference between how much you do through the right and the left. And I have to sort of shuffle around for a second, and then I almost end up sort of pulling my right seat bone out a little bit more, because I feel like it falls into the middle. So I have to sit on it again, start again, rock myself backwards ever so slightly, sit there for a second, and then a bit of weight into the left seat bone, a bit of weight into the right seat bone. And even here, what I notice straight away is that to get weight into my left seat bone, I have to lean right over, and my right seat bone I only have to sit. So I have to work quite hard and use a little bit more of my obliques and sort of the side, everything here, to sort of push my body down onto my right seat bone and say, come on, seat, like a little bit more into the right, and then I can, but into the left, because the right is just so easy. So right seat bone, left, left seat bone, right seat bone, left seat bone. So it's no wonder to my horses that they just fall to the left, because they cannot hear the left. I think the left, I don't know what they think with the left side. To me, they seem to know what I want, even though I don't think I make a lot of sense to them. And then over, bless their hearts, our horses. And then from there, I take a stretch for the piriformis muscle. I was like, the one in the side of the butt. And then just hold that. You can push the leg down ever so slightly. That might give you a bit more stretch. But just be careful that it doesn't hurt your hip too much. And then the other same on the other side. Just hold that. Give it a stretch. It's quite nice, this one. I lie here for ages doing this. It's really satisfying. But it makes a huge difference to me for riding because this side is always so tight. And if I can free this side up, either from doing the stretch or from having a lovely person dig their elbow into my piriformis muscle, which is insanely painful but weirdly satisfying, it really does make a difference. And sometimes like you can see me now, I will even just kind of press around that area myself, just try and free it up. Just be mindful that your sciatic nerve runs under here though, so try not to poke around too much. If you get a sharp pain, you've hit your sciatic nerve. And then come up. Then from there, I'm not quite done yet, there was one more. That was it. I take my pigeon pose. So as long as you've got okay knees, you can get your knee across to your hand. Make sure your leg's exactly straight back. Again, watch the hips are not twisting one way or the other. And then just come literally straight down over this leg. And then make sure that this hip doesn't go wandering. Just, you can almost sort of lean as if you're trying to sit into this hip ever so slightly. But don't sit over to it so far that you rock yourself off balance. Just stay there and just try and hold this position. It's quite nice. Just, if you can bear it, it gets sort of strangely pleasant after a while. And then come back up. Ugh. There we go. All us fit people, this is what we really sound like. And then come, same again, forwards, come straight, and then lean. You lean as if you're going to try and sit down onto that seat bone. Obviously don't, it's just imagine you're going to sit down onto it. And then hold. And then stay there. If you feel you need to stay one side longer than the other, then that's totally cool, because if you're one-sided, you will find that one side every time is going to be stronger or easier than the other. And then I come back to my stretch here, but then I come down onto the knee and just hold, pull, and then a twist if I can. And I bring my hand right round to the opposite side, but knees stay, my legs do not move from this position. It is literally just my upper body. So I'm trying to teach myself to only use my upper body, to sort of turn my horse and to sort of my weight into my seat bones, which, as you can see, I was not finding particularly easy one side to the other. And then rather than me having to lean with my poor horses and turn them like a motorbike, as I used to turn them for polo. So there's lots of things that need to change from dressage, for the dressage even, that weren't issues before. And even here you can see my hips rocking slightly forward. I need to just make sure that goes back. Just be very aware of what your body's up to, because it will try to do things without your knowing and without your say so. So keep yourself dead straight, and then from there twist, then this arm comes back onto the other hip and just hold it. Be mindful of your shoulder if it hurts. If this is too much, you can just take your hand and just place it on your pelvis and just get the twist through the torso. Don't worry too much about try to be kind to the shoulder. And then come back. And then I usually finish with a nice little, child's pose. Usually a downward dog, I must say, but if that's a painful place for you to be, then a child's pose is quite a happy one, which is quite nice. I have been known to add in quite a few other things from time to time, depending on what I feel needs to be worked when. Sometimes my shoulders get tight, so this is another favourite of mine to do, just twist your arm, thread the needle, they call it. But again, you've got to keep your pelvis straight because essentially mine will just want to fall out like this. So I have to force my hips to be where they're supposed to be. And then here, back, and thread the needle through again, and keep your pelvis from wandering anywhere it's not supposed to go. This is really hard. And then imagine when you bring the horse into it, and you know, you've not only got your own muscles trying to throw you off, the horse is trying to throw you off as well. So, you know, we like to make it easy for ourselves, hey? And then I come back here, have another stretch, and then come up, just kind of stretch out the hamstrings again. Another sort of little tuck of the pelvis, stretch up above my head, let it down, breathe in, open up the rib cage, open up the diaphragm after it's been tight in that position, but I'm trying to encourage my body that this is a great position to be in. It doesn't agree, but I try. And then just keep trying to keep my shoulders coming, just open them up, and then I like to bring my shoulders back and down as if I was having a lovely, I had the perfect hands, and then let my wrists go nice and gently, let my elbows go heavy as my instructor would love. Check that my feet haven't wandered off too much, shoulders heavy, hips nice and loose. If they're not loose, I give them a bit more of a going over. And then we are good. And now I'm ready to ride again. There's one that I didn't add in that I've just remembered that I also find quite useful on the sides as a strengthening exercise, is to do the clams. So essentially it's just doing this in and out with the leg. Again, if you're really cool, what I can do sometimes if I'm feeling up for it and I've got a band to hand, is I put the resistance band around my knees and I'll pull against the resistance band, and that gives you a bit more, you know, obviously it's a bit harder. From there, I take it out and I do a couple with my legs straight. Again, same plane, it has to be the same plane of shoulder, hip, knee, ankle, like we would do if we were riding, and use just up and down, up and down, up and down on the side there. Try not to let your hip flexors and your quads do the work. It has to come from the side of the glutes and the glutes. It must be the glute medius muscle doing the work, and not as tempting as it is, just don't, you know, the quads are on, but they're not the ones doing the movement. And then I also add in from here a cheeky little oblique exercise. Take the leg back, bring it up to the elbow, take it back, bring it up to the elbow, just to kind of start strengthening this area. It's pretty good on this side, but then this is the side that I'm strong. On the left side, the side that I love to collapse down, I really have to do this one, because the left side, this is as much as I can get from the left, which is already different to the right. It's pretty pathetic on the left side. And no matter how much I try at the moment, this muscle does not want to turn on as much as its friend. So I really do have to check that I'm doing everything right. Hip straight, rib cage, I sort of have to replant it straight, elbows in line, hips in line, and then I try and turn it on, and it really hates it. It really does. But you don't realise these things until you go to do it, and you suddenly think, gosh, no wonder my poor horse won't go straight, or my poor horse doesn't, like, you know, collapses around the corners, because, oh my goodness, I don't have any strength in my left hip. So here we are, and this is why we do this. And then up there, start again on this side. And what I will try to do is use momentum rather than actually, which is wrong, rather than actually use the muscle. So this muscle, you can even see my right leg trying to move to help, because this leg is so pathetic. But that is what will happen on the horse as well. My right leg will try to hitch up, and my foot will actually come up out of the stirrup, not completely, but you'll see my toe coming up, and rather than my heel being down, because my flipping right leg here is trying to help the left, even when it's the other side of the saddle. So there we go. God, that gets hard. Make sure this is actually working in this oblique, and then just to really, you know, give it a workout, get into that bit there and say, hey, come on, get to work, and lift up, and lift up, That's it. Lift up. And then let it down. And then have a break. And then sometimes I just finish by literally lying here and I just let my knees go out to the sides and I stretch my adductors. And then I have another little think of reposition my entire spine nice and straight. Hips straight, spine straight. I kind of have to readjust my upper back, make sure I'm not twisting anywhere through my rib cage. Literally I have to plant myself about five or six times, maybe 10. And once I feel straight, sometimes I take my arms up